Okonagi removed his communication unit, his taser, and all the heavy equipment he had been carrying. Then he unbuttoned his then told his men to stay put as he stepped forward. I'm gonna beat these kids up with my bare hands. He strode forward about half the distance towards the club members.
山犬の大鳥ワンコとおこのぎだ。お前らのリーダーに敬意を表する。名前を聞かせてくれ。
The club members looked at each other. One of them was a girl taller than the others. She couldn't be that old, but her hawk-like eyes were as sharp as a veteran soldier's. Okonagi didn't know her circumstances, but only those whose lives were threatened on a daily basis had eyes like that.
部長、園崎美音。
The girl stepped forward.
いくつだ？いや、年齢なんてどうでもいい。朝からの沖宮署での騒ぎからこの山での戦いまで、すべてお前の指揮なのか？
The girl didn't answer, but her silence confirmed it more strongly than anything she could have said.
この戦はお前らの勝ちだ。まだ負けてねえと思ってるのはうちのお姫様だけさ。もう今さらどうにもならない。
What did you say about me?
富武は封鎖線を突破。沖宮にすでに到着して東京に連絡を取っただろう。鎮圧部隊がいつここにやってくるか知らねえが、それも時間の問題だ。笑いたきゃ笑え。爪ってやつさ。
おこのぎ、何をやってるの？その女は敵のリーダーよ。倒しなさい。
I kind of thought Takano was going to start freaking out, and I'm glad she did, because it would have been a little strange just to see him talking while Takano's just tapping her foot in the back, being really upset.
お姫様が何か言ってるが気にするな。
望みは何？
お前も大将、俺も大将だ。わかるな。
I challenge you to a children's card game.
あいつ降参したんじゃない
We're
の
going
か？
to duel.
レナにはわかる。あの人は今日敵の指揮をしていたん
Yeah,
だ。
normally at this point in like Pokemon, this is where you would have like a boss battle. And you would fight them. And if you won, then, they would just like, I guess I've lost. And, that would be it. No fighting actually. Make the rats fight or whatever Pokemon are.
そして部下がみんなやられた。だから、はい、そうですかって言って、負けを認めるわけにはいかないの。
我が身を犠牲にしてしか、大軍の将は見そげないというのですか？
いいよ。あんたが納得するようにすればいい。
感謝するぜ。
Mion took a stance. Okonagi took a stance too. Although Okonagi was nothing like Akasaka, he was still a close combat specialist. Even when exhausted, there was no way Mion could defeat him. Takano thought so too. She thought Mion was underestimating Okonagi. But Mion knew. She knew that she was the only one who could put him at ease.
行くぜ。
Okonagi readied, launched sharp from his waist, but Mion deflected it to the side with her elbow, wrapped her arm around underneath it, wrenching it back behind him, and forced it up into a hold. And then she twisted his arm even further. Okonagi was certain she was going to snap a bone. It was an excellent technique. She took his arm in one flowing motion. It was clear that Mion's self-defense techniques weren't spur of the moment. However, she didn't break Okonagi's arm, but instead threw him onto the ground. She didn't deliver the final blow, but rather chose to look down on him.
やるな。
おこのぎ、何やってるの？
Just kill the kids.
早く制圧しなさい。
うるせえ！黙ってみてよ！こいつは大将戦だ！
Okonagi got up quickly, took his stance once again and then swung his arm down. But Mion avoided it effortlessly, and just like she did before, she grabbed his arm and turned it around. They were in the same position as before. And just like what happened then, she didn't break his arm but threw him onto the ground and looked down on him.
回転の儀か。当て身を入れねえところを見ると実践の儀じゃねえな。むしろお上品に演舞を見せる流派ってとこか。ちなみに腕を決めたとき、下がる相手の顔面に膝が入れられるぜ。
そうなんだ。今度試してみるよ。
ミオンってすげえ。向こうの隊長と互角に渡り合ってるぞ。
ほころぎ、武器を使いなさい。何をやってるの？
行くぞキャー
He had a stronger drive this time. He tried to kick right through her from a step and half away. Yet this time Mion stepped in to launch her own attack, jumping right towards the foot, trying hard to kick her. Mion kept herself low as she entered close range with Okonagi, shutting out his leg trying to kick her. So of course he went after her head. Okonagi raised his right arm to elbow her in the skull. But this time Mion rose up, using both hands to keep his arm from swinging down. Unlike the flowing motions from earlier, this was simply a contest of strength. His physique was overwhelmingly superior to hers, so she couldn't win that test of strength. But suddenly Mion let go, and allowed Okonagi's elbow to come down. Then she stepped to the side. It's another repeat of before. Okonagi's arm was held to his back, and he ended up in the same position. But what came after was different. Okonagi's face lowered as Mion lifted his arm up high, and then she swiftly brought her knee into his face. It was exactly the technique that Okonagi told her about just earlier. And once again he was down on the ground.
そうだ。飲み込みが早いじゃねえか。おめえ、戦略、戦術、そして戦闘、すべて三拍子揃ってるぜ。おめえみてえな奴が俺の役をやるべきなんだ。山犬みてえなクソどもの隊長がな。
ごめんだね。あんたらみたいなネクラそうな秘密部隊の隊長なんて。
Mion scoffed. Okonagi took it with a smile too. He wasn't trying to be humble. It was just his pure reaction.
そうだな。お前ほどの器なら、日本の不正規戦部隊長なんてもったいないぜ。サスでもデルタでもスペツナズでも、どこでも最高の人材になれるだろうぜ。何しろ。
サス？デルタフォース？くだらないね。そんな退屈なところじゃ、私を飼いならせやしないよ。
そうだろうな。そうだろうよ。なら聞かせてくれ。お前ほどのやつなら何の隊長を望む？
隊長なんて興味ないね。部長でいいね。
部長、英国情報部あたりってとこか。妥当だな。
ダメダメダメ、なってないね。あのね、私がやりたい部長はたった一つ。南沢文庫の若部の部長だけさ。
Oh, Mion, you shouldn't have.
罰ゲームのない戦いなんてごめんだね。口先の魔術師前原圭一、カーリーモードの竜宮レナ、トラップ使いの里子に萌え落としのリカちゃん、そして期待の新人フルで羽生。
She doesn't have a name yet.
これだけ揃ってなけりゃ世界のどこだろうと退屈だね。
勝てねえ。勝てねえよ。こんなやつが隊長だったんじゃ勝てるわけねえやね。
Wow, Okonagi's really lost it now.
しっかりなさい。
Takano yelled at him, but Okonagi didn't hear it.
これでウォーミングアップはいいだろう。次の一撃でぶち抜いてやるぜ。当たったら死ぬぞ。覚悟しな。
キナ、あんたに似合いの最後をくれてやるよ。
Is this the part where he pulls out the gun?
あんたが欲しいと思ってる決定的な最後をくれてやるよ。
よく言ってくれた。よく言ってくれたぜ。
Okonagi took about 5 steps backwards and breathed deep, and then fell into a trap. His body twisted as he gathered all his spirit into his right fist. Just as he said, this next attack would be for real. He was putting everything he had into this one final blow. Mion narrowed her eyes, preparing to parry the blow with her side. The sky began to stir. They both felt raindrops on their foreheads.
行くぜ。殺すからな。殺しに来いよ。
あんたのお祈りが済んだらいつでも来な。
That one tense moment was suddenly brought to an end. He dashed forward from a low position, just like a runner from a starting line. Then he added the twist from his body into the blow, as his right arm roared with all his power. A bolt of lightning punctuated that moment in time, burning the moment into our eyes. In that moment, Mion's stance hadn't changed at all. No, maybe she moved like lightning in the moment it struck. We had to recall the moment burned into our eyes, to review the scene. Okonagi had swung with his right fist, which had enough power to shatter Mion's bones. So what if 100% of his power was directed back at him in a counterattack? When the lightning struck, Okonagi's body had been flying through the air. It was a legendary technique in Japanese martial arts, passed down in judo and aikido. The air throw. It looked as if one is being thrown without his opponent even touching him, a miraculous technique that occurs at lightning speed. Of all the techniques Mion possessed, it was the most sublime, advanced technique she could administer on the defeated General Okonagi. The feeling of freedom while flying in the air is more memorable than the impact of hitting the ground, supposedly. When Okonagi hit the ground behind Mion, a heavy rain suddenly began to fall. And just as it did, a massive helicopter appeared from the other side of the mountain. The helicopter's rotors stirred up the air and blew away the raindrops like in a tornado. The rotors sounded much like a tornado too. A rope uncoiled from the rear of the helicopter, and soldiers came sliding down it, one after another. The onlookers were stunned for a moment before realizing what they were seeing. It was the Bloodhounds. The Bloodhounds that Tomitake had called in. Having realized how bad the situation had become, Okonagi returned to the other members of the Mountain Dogs. Nothing was going their way anymore. The Mountain Dogs ran down the slope and disappeared into the woods. They dragged Takano with them, who couldn't understand what was going on. A voice echoed from a speaker attached to another helicopter, circling around the mountain.
入江機関の全職員に次ぐ本日1蓋302入江機関の全権限は凍結されまた同時刻上級司令部は入江機関全職員の武装解除を命じた山犬中隊全隊員は直ちに武装解除し入江診療所裏駐車場もしくは山頂資材置き場に集合せよこれに応じない場合国内法及び自衛隊法に基づき厳正に対処することをここに通告する
Bloodhound members continued to slide down the rope from the helicopter. Even at a glance, they were very different from the Mountain Dogs. They were armed more heavily, and the guns they had were much larger. Such things clearly differentiated the two units.
これで私たちの勝ちですの？わかりませんのです。僕も 初めてのことなので勝ったのかわからないのです。
Satoko and Rika sat down and hugged each other. They were both soaked in rain, but they still sat down in the mud. Neon stood solemnly in the rain as the leader of the winning team. The mountain dogs had abandoned the field. They all ran away with their tails between their legs, like a bunch of dogs on a mountain. Keiichi and Rena ran over to Mion.
ミオン、
みーちゃん終わったね。
ああ、これで部活は終わりさ。
リカちゃんも無事、みんなも無事。みーちゃん、勝ち取れる最高の勝利を勝ち取ったんだよ。
ミオンがみんなを率いたんだ。ミオンのおかげの勝利さ。
But Mion didn't seem to be listening to Keiichi and Rena. Instead, she mumbled to herself.
私さ、部活の罰ゲームって好きなんだよね。部活ってさ、残酷だよね。仲間で戦い合ってさ、ビリを決める。つまりそれは、その子がビリだってみんなが見下すことなんだよね。
見下してなんかいねえだろ。楽しく罰ゲームをして、それでおしまいさ。
そう。罰ゲームで楽しく遊んで、敗戦の賞の責任をさ、楽しくみんなで笑って、それでチャラにできるから好きなんだよね。負けた本人も含めて、みんなで笑って。
誰も傷つかない。みんなで楽しく笑っておしまいにできる。
おこのぎってやつは、私に投げ飛ばされて、叩きのめされなきゃ自分の罪がさ。そりゃさ、今日何度もヤバい目にあったよ。殺されそうに何度もなったよ。でもさ、もう終わりでしょ？ゲームセットなんだよ。なのに、彼らにはチャラにする罰ゲームがないんだね。
Mion might have realized something when she threw Okonagi. Keiichi didn't think anyone else could understand that.
ミオンが何を言ってるのかわからねえ。もう忘れろ。あいつらはもう終わりさ。
そうだね。これでもうすべて。
みんな生きてる。誰も怪我してない。今は最高のハッピーエンドを喜ぼうよ。
そうだな。誰もやられなかった。最高のハッピーエンドじゃねえか。
While they hadn't yet confirmed Shion and Kasai's safety, they were correct. This was the happy ending that they had all been fighting for. However, Mion was still thinking. She only understood the reason for that in the moment the thunder struck. But as soon as the flash of lightning disappeared, her understanding vanished as well. All she could remember was that she noticed something very important and that shortly after, she completely forgot about it. She could only feel a great sense of loss. What does that mean? I thought she was like going to get shot or something. The bloodhounds soon surrounded the club members. At first, they thought the club members were their enemies, but when Kumataki appeared, he explained the whole situation. The commander of the bloodhounds appeared to beg the club members not to say a word about anything, as it was a politically sensitive incident. It was amusing to see a man like that beg while carrying all those weapons. Of course, they had no intention of talking to anyone about it. Once it had ended, it all felt like a bad dream. If, on the following day, someone asked them what they had been doing, they might not even remember it. This day was that unrealistic for them. So even if they were asked, they wouldn't say a word.
リカちゃん、無事でよかった。
Ah, Akasaki, you didn't get your chance to do your cool return again.
赤坂、無事でよかったのです。
こっちも大成功だったよ。そっちもみんな無事かい？入江診療所は
すでに彼らが制圧したそうだよ。山犬の隊員たちも続々と投降に応じてる。隠れていた入江先生ともう一人の少年も彼らに保護されたそうだよ。
What about all the what about all the dudes that are like tied up in the forest? Are they just like potentially the dudes that are in like a hole in the ground, like slowly filling up with water? I guess they could probably swim out of it if it filled up enough. I don't know if there'd be that much water, but I'm just imagining like the dudes that are unconscious, you know, face down, tied up, like potentially like in a puddle, like drowning. But that's okay. I'm sure they're all fine. Especially the ones that they mercilessly beat with a bat.
監督も無事ですのね。よかったですわ。少年？
Oh no. I just realized that about 3 seconds before she said that.
はて、どなたでございましょうね。富田さんか岡村さんあたりが巻き込まれて怪我でもしたのかしら。さとこ、本当に良かったのです。
Rika's smile made it clear what she had gone through. Someone could only smile like that after a long and exhausting struggle. Satoko had no idea what that smile meant. How much time would be needed to make her understand? Still, Irie will do something about it. For certain, he will bring Satoko's Nini back home.
そうだ、さとこ。今日のお注射をしていないのではないですか？お注射をしないとダメなのです。あ、そうでしたわね。こんな時にも注射をやめちゃいけないなんて面倒な話ですこと。
Satoko seemed to have no idea that her medication was connected to the syndrome. Perhaps she was already aware, but pretended not to be. Rika vowed to herself that no matter how long it took, she was going to witness with her own eyes the moment her best friend finally parted with her tragic past.
このお注射も日に2回で助かりますわよね。以前の3回の時は本当に大変でしたわ。
Satoko also had no idea that Satoshi was involved in the development of her medication. Irie had said that Satoshi, as a specimen, had contributed much to Satoko's treatment. Even while asleep, Satoshi longed to ease the burden on Satoko. And those feelings must have influenced Satoko's medicine somehow. Satoko had to inject herself in the stomach. For privacy, she ran into the grove of trees to give herself a shot. There was no danger in her doing so. Hopefully, one after another, the bloodhounds dropped down from the helicopters. Each helicopter must have carried at least 20 to 30 soldiers. There was one helicopter at the top of the mountain, and 2 more halfway down the slope. Troops were pouring down from all of them, leading to the impression that the entire mountain was under the bloodhounds' control. Nobody fired their weapons even once. The mountain dogs had no choice but to surrender. It wasn't raining hard at all. The skies should clear up after 20 or 30 minutes. It was the volatile weather typical of early summer. Satoko soon returned and spoke to her best friend.
リカ、羽生さんの姿が見えませんわね。
Oh no, did she disappear?
さっきまで一緒にいました
Or did she get grabbed?
羽生どこ？
It was stupid of me to think that Tokyo had sent more support. They're acting as if they've known of their loss for a while now. I was the only one who didn't know.
どういうことなの？状況がさっぱりわからないわよ、この
Don't worry, we got one of the kids.
手詰まりってやつ、富武が呼んだ番犬が到着したんですよ。
番犬？名前は聞いたことあるけど、でも山犬と似たようなものでしょ。どうして応戦しないのよ。
ご冗談は。
Most of my units are tied up in the forest.
山犬は所詮傍聴部隊です。対して番犬は本間門の戦闘部隊です。花から勝ち目なんざありませんね。
The remaining 3 members looked at me in exhaustion.
大体どうして番犬が来るのよ。富武は捕まえてるのにどうして？他にスパイがいるんじゃないの？ それは誰よ。
さんさ、すでに診療所が襲撃され、富武
Oh no,
兄
you
が
weren't supposed to tell
奪
her
い返され
that.
たことはご存知ないのですか。
One of the three spoke up timidly, but Okonagi signaled him to shut up.
そんなの聞いてないわよ。それはいつよ。どうなってるのこのぎ。それに村から逃げられないよう封鎖部隊というのもいるんでしょ。
They aren't even responding to me anymore. I've been left behind. I'm the only one who didn't know. I'm being left out. The members looked at Okonagi, waiting for his command. Nobody is waiting for my order. Nobody even cares about my orders.
隊長、指揮者より無線です。
One of the members handed the intercom to Okonagi.
大鳥ワンダー。
隊長、各校より最終連絡です。各校を実行せよ。
Oh no, not Operation Cucko.
各校了解した。
指揮者を番犬が包囲中です。投降を勧告しています。いかがしますか。
指揮者、いや太田、足立、ご苦労だったな。投降を許可する。武装解除して以後は番犬の指示に従え。
指揮者了解。
各員その場で聞け。指揮者が制圧された。すでに診療所も制圧されているだろう。我々は全てのバックアップと装備を失った。全班は壊滅。個々の隊員たちも武装解除に応じているだろう。山犬の完全敗北だ。
まだよ。なんとか東京の野村さんに連絡を取るのよ。番犬が何よ。番犬に匹敵する部隊を送り込んでくれるわ。R は生きていたのよ。終末作戦の実行は可能だわ。それをすぐに野村さんに連絡しないと。そのためにはまず東京への連絡手段を取り返すことが重要よ。こうなると村の連絡網を遮断したのが裏目に出るわね。指揮者を奪還するしかないわ。指揮者の無線で東京に連絡して応援を呼ぶ
Connor,
の
you
よ。
need to calm down.
幸い指揮者は今あっさり降伏してみせたから奴らも油断してるはず。おこのぎと3人も隊員がいれば十分可能よ。まだ6月19日作戦開始は21日22日だったかしら。まだ間に合う。まだまだ間に合う。ここから巻き返すわよおこのぎ。すぐに指揮者の奪還を実行しなさい。なんで誰も私の言うことを聞けないの。私は3歳よ。おこのぎよりずっと偉いのよ。おこのぎの言うことは聞けて、どうして私の言うことが聞けないの。
サンサ、さっきから飛び回ってるヘリが言う通りですわ。このゲームはうちらの負けです。これ以上の往生際の悪さは互いに得になりませんね。
何を言うのおこのぎ。まだよ。もうくじけるの。あなたも R が生きているのを見たでしょ。今日の一日がおかしくなったのは R が死んだなんて噂が流れたからよ。でも R は生きていた。今日の一日はなかったことになるのよ。緊急マニュアルはまだ生きているわ。女王感染者が生きている以上、改めて殺せばそこから48時間の緊急マニュアル執行可能な時間が。
サンサ、緊急マニュアルがどうこうって次元じゃもうないんですよ。もう東京は女王感染者とか、それが死んだら48時間とか。終末作戦は完全に失敗しました。我々のクライアントはすでに証拠の隠滅に走り回っているでしょう。我々の役目ももうおしまいですわ。山犬なんて面白い部隊を10年ほど指揮させてもらいました。貴重な経験ができましたが、それも今日でおしまいです。そしてサンサ、あんたの役割ももうおしまいです。
何をすんねん。私の役割。何のことよ。
サンサ、あんたの役目はその手に持っておられるスクラップ帳を育て上げることでした。
何の話よ。